Hello everybody, welcome to the question and answer session for Tayside and Fife Meet the Buyer. I would like to first of all introduce myself. My name is Mark Allan, I'm the Procurement and Commissioning Manager for Angus Council. I'll now go through and introduce the rest of the panel and then we'll get to answering the questions that we've received. First of all, Caroline, can I ask you to introduce yourself please?
Yeah, of course, Mark. Hi there, my name is Caroline MacDonald and I'm the Procurement Service Manager at Fife Council.
Thanks, Caroline. Derek?
Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Hamilton and I'm a Category Manager within Fife Council's Procurement Service.
Cheers, thanks, Derek. Lynzi, I'll ask you next.
Hi, I'm Lynzi Stewart and I'm the Senior Procurement Officer in Perth and Kinross Council's Corporate Procurement Team. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynzi. And last but very much not least, Karen, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi, I'm Karen Lawson, Corporate Procurement Manager at Dundee City Council.
Thanks very much, Karen, that's excellent. Okay, everybody, without further ado, we'll maybe just get straight into the questions, if that's okay. So the first question we've got is from Stuart Dunn, and this question is as follows. Good afternoon. What is your strategy to achieve the targets set out in your Climate Fife Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan 2020 to 2030, especially as you state you need to catch up on the years we've procrastinated? Are you planning to deliver solely in-house or through utilising a specialist supply chain system? If so, how do clean tech energy efficiency integrators open up dialogue with your energy and procurement teams in advance of any potential project being advertised? Many thanks. I guess in the first instance, this question seems directed towards Fife colleagues. So maybe ask Caroline first of all, if she has any answer to that, maybe bring Derek in after that as well, if that's okay. Thanks. Caroline?
Yeah, I will actually just hand over to Derek on this one because he's our sustainability champion in Fife Council.
Okay. Thank you. The Climate Action Plan in Fife has been led by our sustainability team within Fife Council, and corporate procurement and procurement services within Fife are working very closely with them. The question around, the first part of the question around the catch-up on the years we procrastinated, I would need to take that question back to the sustainability team themselves to engage with them on their action plan. But they do have an action plan, and we know that it's a hot topic within Fife Council because there is ongoing training around climate literacy. The second part of the question, is it being delivered in-house? As far as I'm aware, it is at the moment. It's being delivered by our sustainability team. But again, I would need to liaise with the sustainability team about the longer term requirements. But from a procurement perspective, Fife Council's procurement service is working with our sustainability team, and we're piloting a climate literacy with procurement colleagues to see how that goes. Within procurement requirements, there is a need to consider the procurement sustainability test, and that is run, and that would take recognisance of any requirements from the action plan. An example I would give from my own role would be the need to no longer buy diesel or petrol cars after 2025. So obviously, as we're starting to work through our fleet replacement programme, we're taking these actions on board and working with the marketplace, working with client services, and heading and looking at the individual action plan as it impacts on different types of procurements.
That's excellent, Messi. So that's superb. Caroline, do you want to come back with anything, or does that cover, do you think, the response to that question?
No, I think that's really comprehensive.
Excellent. I'll maybe ask the next question, might be related. Yeah, thanks very much, folks. The next question is for us all, I think. Can the other members of the panel respond to the strategies too? If you want, maybe could ask for the first question to put back up just so we have it in front of us so we can read the context. That's brilliant. I'm going to bring in Lynzi first on that one, just to give us a bit of information, maybe from the Perth and Kinross perspective on this particular issue. Thanks, Lynzi.
Yeah, no problem. So Perth and Kinross Council, we've got an interim climate emergency report and action plan, and that's publicly available on the PKC website. Now, the first stage of the report is the report is the first stage in our journey, and the purpose of that is to give all citizens a chance to play a part in delivering a low carbon and climate resilient Perth and Kinross council. And in terms of the supply chain and opening up dialogue with energy and procurement teams, I would always just recommend to suppliers that if you've got any information that you want to share with us in terms of the services that you can offer, please just get in touch, drop us an email, and we can certainly pass that on to the relevant people who can come back to you if they require any further information. Thank you.
Lynzi, that's excellent. Thanks very much indeed. Karen, can I bring you in as well, if that's okay on this issue?
Yes, thank you. We have a partnership climate action plan in Dundee. It's been prepared through collaborative working led by the council, but co-designed with public, private and community organisations. So really recognising that it is a side effort. The plan includes 4 themes. So it's energy, transport, waste and resilience, and each theme looking at a set of actions. So reducing consumption of energy, encouraging active travel, managing waste sustainability, and ensuring our communities and green networks and infrastructure are adaptable to the changing climate demands. So again, as Lynzi says, very often it's what companies can offer us, and really getting in touch with the procurement team at Dundee. Again, we can signpost to the appropriate teams or officers that could support in any further engagement.
Excellent, thanks, Karen. I'll make some comment, if it's okay, from the Angus perspective now, and it's really difficult to add to the excellent answers that have gone before. As you can imagine, Angus Council also has a climate action plan in play, and that also has impact on procurement. If we have an energy management unit in-house, it seems likely that the expectation is that the response will be primarily managed through our in-house team, but that's not to say that specialist additional support expert services won't be required from time to time. And as Derek adverted to as well, I think that we're looking to build in more and more through use of things like government buying standards, sustainability features to our specification requirements. I think vehicles is an excellent example, as Derek's given. And maybe just to echo what Lynzi and Karen said as well, it's important therefore for any providers, any suppliers, if you think there's something you can offer to any of the authorities to supplement, build on, maybe even address matters we haven't thought of, get in touch. Our contact details will be available as part of the response information following this question and answer session. So yeah, thanks for raising the question. Please keep in touch. I think that probably covers everything for questions 1 and 2. Can we jump forward to question 3, please? This question is a general one. As a Scottish infrared heating manufacturer, can we get involved in your framework with supply only? I'm personally going to find that one quite a difficult one to answer in detail, but I'll give it a go first, and I'll maybe bring in the panel, if that's okay, for any additional comment. So I should have said that question from Craig Herriot. Sorry for the late name check there, Craig. I have to confess that in terms of the special supply of infrared heating, I'm not aware of Angus Council's position on that. What I would encourage you to do is get in touch with me directly. You'll have my contact details post-event, and then I can make sure that gets to the appropriate specialist service within the council. The housing department, I'm sure, are considering this as part of our response to energy efficiency. But unfortunately, sadly, I can't give you a specific answer right here and now. I will, however, bring in the rest of the panel if they want to. Is anyone got any comments? First of all, I'll just take people in order. Caroline, you get any comment on that one?
Yeah, similarly, I don't know the specifics as to whether we buy this kind of kit, but if we do, and if it's on the basis of supply and fit, what we would do is put you in touch with it. Well, the successful contractor, that information is publicly available, so we could provide you with that information, and there might be a subcontract opportunity there. But like you, Mark, it would be a case of understanding what it is you offer and whether it's something that we currently purchase or indeed have plans to purchase in the future, and we can take it from there. Thanks.
Excellent. Great answer, Karen. Really good point about subcontracting opportunities. I think sometimes it's something I kind of overlook myself, so thanks for highlighting that. Derek, anything to add?
No, I've nothing to add to that, Mark.
Great, thanks, Derek. Lynzi, can I bring you in any comments for Perth and Kinross?
Yeah, all I would say, and again, I can't comment specifically on this, but Caroline obviously mentioned subcontract opportunities. Another potential opportunity where there's a framework may be that the framework is lotted, and it may be that there is a potential opportunity for supply only. Within Perth and Kinross Council, we do have our own in-house trades team, so sometimes we do only purchase the goods and materials, and then our own team would do installation. But in terms of this specific requirement, I would need to look into what our current arrangements were.
Thanks, Lynzi. Good point. Yeah, maybe just come back on a wee supplementary point myself for Angus. Angus doesn't have an in-house installation team, so it's quite likely we would require always supply and fit. But nonetheless, do come back to us, Craig, and we'll investigate that in some detail. Karen, bring yourself in, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. I think pretty much in agreement with everything that my colleagues have said, but I think an important point to note here is that Scotland Excel do a lot of collaborative buying or tendering for supply type contracts, and they're currently working on their next generation of their energy efficiency contract. So framework, and what Dundee City Council would do is wherever there is a framework in place, we would look to procure through that for supply if possible. So I would certainly suggest looking up Scotland Excel, making contact with them. I can put you in contact with the person that's leading on the energy efficiency contract if that would be any use to you as well.
Excellent point, Karen. Thanks very much. That's superb. I think that covers that question. Can we move on to the next question, please? This is about, from Fergus Adams, how do you select suppliers for quick quotes? I'm just going to pick a couple of victims in the panel for that one, because I suspect our response will be quite similar. Derek, I'm going to pick on yourself first of all, for no other reason than you caught my eye.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Fife Council, if our procuring officers are using the quick quote facility on Public Contracts Scotland, there's a variety of methods that they would use to identify suppliers. That would include using the supplier finder facility on Public Contracts Scotland quick quotes. They would have their own general knowledge of the marketplace. They would have the good old internet for doing searches on the internet. They could liaise with our economic development service to see if they've got any knowledge of any local suppliers who may be interested in the quick quote, or the client service may have already identified suppliers. There's a number of ways in which suppliers can be obtained, and also I would encourage suppliers to get in contact with Fife Council's procurement service so you can make yourself known, and we can pass that information on to relevant services within the council.
Derek, excellent answer as always. I can't really add to that, but I'm going to try in one respect only. Small hobby horse Fergus, if I could ask you to consider making sure that your supplier profile in Public Contracts Scotland is up to date and full and does yourself and your business justice. I'm finding now that we're using the supplier finder functionality of Public Contracts Scotland that Derek referred to more and more, but if you don't have a good profile on there, we don't really know what you do. So you might not be doing yourself the maximum benefit. So we can see what your skills are, what your experience is, what your track record looks like. So if I might just add that one wee supplementary point, unless is there anything else from the panel, any burning comments you want to add, or do we think that that probably covers it? My sense is I think we're really very consistent across the board on that, so hope that helps. Fergus. Next question, please. This question is from an anonymous sender. The question is, I've been hearing bits and pieces about net zero, but I don't know what it will mean for my company. Is this something the four councils will be taking forward within future tenders? I think given the sustainability element, again, Derek, sorry to pick on you, but do you mind if I maybe come to your good self first? Sorry, I feel I'll try not to pick you too much. But from a sustainability perspective, I think this might be something you can maybe comment to.
I can give a little bit of comment on it. It's something I have heard about, which is net zero. There was a recent SPPN, which I can pass on to anyone who gets in contact. As Mark has said, my contact details will be available. The SPPN that was set out the vision for the Scottish Government around net zero. And I've also seen recent similar, not SPPNs, but the English equivalent, in which the companies who tender in the future will be required to have a net zero carbon output. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, it's something that we're going to have to discuss in depth with our sustainability team as to how it's going to affect Fife Council's supplier and future tenders. It's not something that's law at the moment, so the SPPN is just a policy note and it's just about raising awareness, but it is something that is looming on the horizon.
Derek, excellent answer. And I think for my own part, I'm just going to echo the sentiment. Have to confess that in terms of the detail of how we take forward net zero, I think it's quite early days. But we touched earlier on things like specifying for carbon reduction and specifying for sustainability. I suspect that things like government buying standards will be updated and uprated to reflect this increased ambition to get to net zero from our supply chain in future years. So the short answer to the question, is something the four councils will take forward, is likely yes, but the detail of things yet to come. Will we just bring in the rest of the panel on this one? Have you got anything to add? Caroline, do you want to add anything to that?
Nothing to add, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Caroline. Lynzi?
No, I've not got anything to add, thank you.
And Karen?
No, I think Derek summarised that. I think, tying this into our sustainable procurement duty will probably lead to, in the future, sustainable considerations within our tenders. So yes, I think it's something that's on the horizon, but something that we're working towards at present.
Excellent, thanks, Karen. Good point about the sustainability duty. Next question, please. This question is from Ian Moughlin, and the question is, as a heating control manufacturer with a facility in Scotland, do you see this as a potential community benefit? Interesting question, Ian. My sense is that the question really relates more to the facility presence in Scotland rather than the heating control issue, but I'll bring in the panel. I think this is one for us all. So Caroline, again, hope you don't mind me starting off with your good self.
That's okay. So yes, we do see that any kind of supply chain impact within our local area or nationally in Scotland as being having positive impact on our economy. Whether it's actually defined as a community benefit, I'm not so sure. However, certainly in Fife, we are trying to take cognizance of that indirect supply chain benefit. So we currently report local spend, and but we acknowledge that local isn't always just having a base in Fife. Sometimes it would be a wider facility, not only in Fife but in Scotland. So we are looking to capture that information and reporting it because it does have a positive impact on the economy. So that is recognised, but perhaps underreported currently, certainly from our own point of view. But depending on kind of the value of a contract, there's no getting away from the fact that we may have to advertise it not only nationally but wider. And unfortunately, the legislation doesn't currently allow us to give additional points for having a facility in Scotland.
Thanks, Caroline. Excellent. Let me just add to that a little bit myself, and I think, again, difficult to add too much because I think you've covered that really comprehensively. I think maybe one of the points I would suggest is that perhaps it depends to a degree on the scale and scope of the contract. If the contract is regionally focused, if we can put it that way, then I think there's the community to which the benefit might attach would be probably more narrowly focused as well towards that community. If the scale and scope of the contract, of course, is Scotland-wide, then it does strike me that, yes, indeed, the potential is there for community benefit to be attached to a Scotland-wide contract from the presence of a facility in Scotland. I also think there's an opportunity here to widen this issue out into community wealth building, not just community benefit, in terms of making sure that the communities we serve are directly supported by the positive power of our supply chain and the money we spend with it. This is a very current issue. It's probably the case that the discussion on policy development here is getting a wee bit ahead of the legal position. So we await with interest, I think all of us, to see what's going to pop out in terms of what I believe is a Community Wealth Building Act, which Scottish Government is intending to produce. So I see this as a potential yes, but I think we have to have a bit of care to make sure that we relate community benefit to what we're buying. I think that's quite an important issue. I'll bring everyone else in if that's okay. As we go, Derek, first of all, your good self.
Yeah, I think Caroline mentioned about the supply chain. I'm not sure if having a facility myself in Scotland would be a community benefit as defined under the community benefits section within the procurement regulations, but definitely supply chain opportunities within procurements are involved within community benefits, and more importantly within recovery and reform, or reform and recovery. For the individual local authorities. Just as a word of warning though, as the question from Ian mentioned he's got a facility in Scotland. When we're looking at economic recovery and reform, it's very regionally focused. So we just need to be careful that we don't, in some cases, become too regionally focused. And if your facility was in the wrong region, so these are where we're still at very, very early stages with community wealth building and recovery and reform, and we need to make sure that we've got the legislative up to date, so that aligns itself with the Community Wealth Building Act and the procurement legislation, and that we also don't find ourselves going down dead ends and becoming too regionally focused and losing out on good Scottish companies that may not be in your particular council area.
Excellent points, Derek, as always. Brilliant. Thank you. Lynzi, bring yourself in.
Yeah, I think everybody's covered most of it. But in terms of seeing this as a potential community benefit, this tends not to be the type of thing that Perth and Kinross would include within their community benefits. Although there are obviously other benefits to us having, a Scotland-based company in terms of deliveries and that type of thing. But in terms of community benefits, I would suggest if you want, Ian, maybe take a look at the Perth and Kinross Council website, where we've got quite a lot of information about our community benefits and what's included in that, and our community benefits wish list. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Lynzi. Karen, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, thank you. I guess in Dundee City Council, we look at considering community benefits in any contract that we let, and whether that's through, supply chain opportunities, local spend, and also in terms of employability opportunities. So again, regionalisation, we're not really wanting to make ourselves in an isolated way. We want to encourage business development across the Scottish area, and we don't see it just as a singular sort of local authority initiative. It is something we want to work with our partners and colleagues on.
Excellent, thanks, Cam. I think that was a really interesting question with a really interesting range of responses there, so thanks for that, Ian, that was great. Next question, please. This is from an anonymous sender. The question is, I'm not based in one of the 4 council areas, but I would like to expand my business there. Is there any support for this? We've got a preamble, if I might, on that one. I wonder if that sounds like more of an economic development question, perhaps, than the pure procurement. I'm very sure that all of the authorities concerned would be delighted to hear from the sender of the question if you'd care to get in touch, and if you have specific thoughts about where you might wish to locate, to explore with you what support can be offered. But from the procurement perspective, I'll maybe just offer an initial comment, if that's okay. I'm not sure that the procurement function is well placed on its own to do this. But we talked a little bit earlier about community wealth building. Perhaps that's something that might in the future be there to help better linkages between economic development ambitions and procurement delivery. But we have to, without too fine a point in it, keep a bit of a focus on the fact that we're buying supplies and services to support delivery of public services by our authorities. So that really has to, I think, remain as the primary focus of the procurement function. I'm very happy to hear other, probably better, frankly, comments from the rest of the panel. I'm going to invert the order just for the sake of variety. Karen, we'll start with yourself.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I think that the point you touched on is very important to tie in with our economic development colleagues. But again, coming in through the procurement team, we can put you in contact with those people. I think very much looking at also the supplier development programme and looking at opportunities that are advertised on Public Contract Scotland would let you see what is happening regionally and how you can look at engaging further with us. But as I say, economic development team definitely would be my first point of contact to put you in touch with.
Thanks, Karen. Excellent point about SDP. Thanks for reminding us of that. Lynzi, if we can bring you in next, please.
Yeah, again, similar to Karen and yourself, Mark, I would suggest that this organisation get in touch with the economic development team, and similar to Dundee again, if they would like, send the details on to the procurement team, and we can certainly share them on. Another good source of support is Business Gateway, and they can, they could help point you in the right direction as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Lynzi. Good reference. I think the Business Gateway, sometimes I kind of overlook that source. Brilliant. Derek, please, next.
No, I have nothing to add to that, apart from with what everybody else has said around getting in contact with Economic Development Service, Business Gateway and Supplier Development Programme as initial points of contact.
Thanks, Derek. And last but not least, Caroline.
Not necessarily an area of support, but just a tip really if suppliers aren't aware of it. If you are interested in specific councils, you can go into our own buyer profile and see the contract notices that we're advertising. Because I know that when you're set up for alerts, you'll get alerts from all public bodies that are advertising for the categories you've registered an interest for. But if you're interested specifically in any one or more councils, if you go in through our buyer profile, it will give you that kind of filtered list. So that's just really a tip as opposed to an area of support. But I echo everyone's comments about economic development and so on.
Excellent tip though, Caroline. It's really important for suppliers to bear in mind that they can get more and more benefit from better and more sophisticated use of PCS tools. So brilliant, excellent. Next question, please. The question is from anonymous sender. Do you have any procurement clinics coming up? Again, if you don't mind, we'll just take this in order. I'll start with Karen again, if that's okay.
Yes, thanks. That's something that we have been discussing. I think given the global pandemic that we've been working through, normally we would have our local Meet the Buyer events, which we've not had the opportunity to do this year. One of the things that my colleagues in Tayside and Fife have been talking about doing with SDP is running some of these procurement clinics. So we're just working on agreeing the timescales in which we'll do them in, but we would certainly be advertising and promoting them through the SDP website.
Thanks, Karen. That's excellent. Lynzi?
Yeah, I've not got anything to add to what Karen's just said there. We've not got anything with a date set in Perth and Kinross at the moment.
Thanks, Lynzi. And without wishing to sideline you, Derek, I'll just ask Caroline for this one for the Fife position, if that's okay.
Yeah, just the same. We're all working on this together.
Absolutely. That's exactly the same for myself, Caroline. I think that when Karen put it awful well, we are looking to work together. I think that it's great to continue this Fife and Tayside liaison, and procurement clinics, particularly if we can host them virtually, would be something very much on our radar. So watch this space and the SDP space, please, if you would. Thanks. Next question, please. Again, anonymous sender, how can an innovator supplier be able to present a product that has added technology to each of the councils if you don't know it exists? Well, hard question, I think, for me, but yes, a really interesting one. I'll bring in, if it's okay again, just for the sake of a wee bit of variety in the order. Lynzi, you get any thoughts initially for Perth and Kinross about how innovation can best be presented to the councils?
Yeah, so again, similar to a few of the other queries, what we always suggest to suppliers who feel that they've got something to offer us, just get in touch, send us the information, and we will pass it on to the relevant services and teams. And if they feel that there's some benefit, they will contact the suppliers, discuss what they offer, and then we can look at moving forward.
Thanks, Lynzi. Karen?
Yes, very much the same. I think we have got an energy efficiency project that we're working on, for example, and we've got an appointed consultant to work on that. So I think, again, engaging, maybe not at the first level, but at the second level of supply chain, I think is often a good aspect to consider as well. So again, getting in touch with us and we can do the signposting, I think is probably the most appropriate thing to do.
Brilliant, thanks, Karen. Derek?
Without knowing what the product is, I would suggest, just echoing everybody else's comments, that if they can get in contact with ourselves, we can then direct the individual or the company to the relevant part of the council. But I mean, if it's a goods and services and it's linked to our building trades, we do have a tech forum that it could possibly be directed to. There is also the Innovation Partnership, which is part of the procurement regulations. It's not something that I'm particularly au fait with, but I know that a couple of councils and a couple of public bodies have run innovation partnerships to try and support companies who have a truly innovative product, so that they're not going through a tender process and it then becomes a publicly known product that can be replicated. So there are a couple of options there, but again, without understanding or knowing what it is that the individual is trying to present, it's difficult to know it's difficult to be able to articulate where I would be able to send that to within the council or how I'd be able to take it forward.
I think a very fair comment, Derek. I had a similar thought myself. Great reference though to innovation partnership procedure, but lest we forget, really good call. Caroline, anything to add to this one?
Not hugely. Derek's mentioned the area of the regulations, but also within the sustainable procurement duty, we've got an obligation to consider whether innovation is possible through individual procurement exercises. So if we consider that there perhaps is an alternative way to deliver the service or supplies that we require, I would suggest that certainly in Fife, and I suspect probably beyond, that we would look to engage with the marketplace just to see what's on offer before we kind of write a prescriptive specification. So we would maybe do that through a prior information notice and invite suppliers to come and kind of share that knowledge and give us an idea of what's available in the market to help inform how we take that procurement forward.
Excellent point, Caroline. I think that's the only, you stole my thunder, frankly, because the only point I was going to add there, and there's something actually, if I'm honest, I don't think is a particular strength of Angus, but I think the other partners are very strong on it. Pre-market consultation is really important for this. We don't pretend as authorities that we know the supply side as well as suppliers do. We think pre-market consultation is therefore really important to make sure that we are getting sight on potential innovations, potential new technology that can add value to what we're buying. And we also make sure, just as Caroline's touching on, that we don't specify in ways that would preclude such innovation. So pre-market consultation, prior indicative notices are really important just for that. And last but not least, our forward plans are really important too, because as Caroline touched on earlier, that's where you can go into the council's buyer profiles, find out what's on our books maybe the next 2 to 3 years, and if it ties in with an area that you want to supply on, and it's an area you think you can bring innovative value to, get in touch. As Lynzi said, we want to hear from you. We can make sure if you send information to procurement mailboxes, it'll get to the right people. We'll add you to our knowledge base so that we can keep you apprised of development of these opportunities as it goes. Thanks very much for that question. That's great. Next question, please. This question again from an anonymous sender. As a small company, are there opportunities to apply for very small sections of a contract, or should we maybe team up with another business? I'm going to have a go, just because I've picked on other victims unfairly already. I'm going to pick on myself for a change. And I don't know if I'll give a very good answer, but I'm very sure that the rest of the panel will amplify this very well. So the question of small section of contract, we would call that contract lotting. We have a duty actually to consider whether lotting of our contracts would benefit better engagement with the opportunity, particularly where the supply chain is made up of a preponderance of small to medium enterprises. So it's something we're alive to. But equally, we can't break up our contracts into such small pieces that they become unmanageable. So there's a balance to be struck, there always is. We touched earlier on pre-engagement, pre-market consultation, getting in touch with us early. Again, we want to hear from the supply chain when we're developing our plans for going to market. If we need to consider things like greater or better lotting to make sure we don't adversely impact on SMEs. But the last part of the question is also very relevant, very important. I would never preclude that as being a valid approach. It's hard. I'm not suggesting that entering into an agreement with a party who might otherwise be a competitor in the long run of affairs is an easy thing to do, but it is doable. And if I might name check Supplier Development Programme here, Supplier Development Programme can actually help with that. That is part of the tender-ready training that SDP offer, where joining up to provide a kind of joint offering to build on each other's relative strengths might allow you to, for example, deliver over a greater geographic area, or take advantage of the logistics supply chain that another party might have that you don't. So yes, some innovation I think there, and maybe some difficult conversations would be a very appropriate thing to have when you're faced with a buying opportunity that at first seems too big for you to take a bite out of. So that's my initial thoughts. I'll bring in the panel. Caroline, can I start with your good self, please?
Yep. Yeah, totally agree that opportunity for potential collaboration with another supplier, and that could be done through either a formal consortium type bid approach, so that you are actually formally joining as a joint bidder, or perhaps you could apply to be like a subcontract opportunity, again formally or informally at tender stage. What I would say is, if you're bidding as the main bidder, but you rely on other organisations to fulfil the requirements of the lot or wider contract that you're bidding for, you will be obliged to declare that at qualification stage. So that's just something to bear in mind. Because you have to evidence that basically you and the other suppliers that you rely on do meet all the essential criteria. So that's just, again, another tip to help you through the tender process. But if it's not something that you wish to bid for as part of the tender, you could look out for award notices and suppliers that have been awarded a contract. Again, that's potentially an opportunity to get in touch with those suppliers and see if there's any subcontract opportunities.
Excellent points, Alan. Brilliant. Derek, can I bring yourself in?
Yeah, I really just echo the comments that have been made previously, but I would just say that it is a reminder to all the procuring people and to the suppliers that we are legally obliged to consider whether a contract or a framework, if it's regulated, should be lotted. So that consideration should have been made. And I mean, the important word there is to consider, because in some occasions, from the council's perspective, it's maybe not appropriate to sublot it due to resource issues or requirements on how we manage the contracts. But again, just to echo the point that pre-market engagement is really key, because we may be not lotting a contract or a framework when actually the marketplace has changed and it's been broken down into smaller companies who can deliver smaller parts of a framework. So we need to be very careful that we don't get caught up in what we did yesterday, and we need to make sure that how we're shaping the frameworks of the contract actually meet the needs of the current marketplace and the future marketplace.
Brilliant, Derek. Such a good reminder to us all that we shouldn't just do what we've always done, or I been, as we say up in our neck of the woods. Lynzi, I'll bring you in next, please.
Yeah, I've not got much to add. I think most of it's already been covered. But in terms of market engagement and identifying, if contracts are going to be lotted, that's something that we would do right at the very initial sort of developing strategy stage. So we do take the market situation into account when identifying, the route to market and whether or not it's going to be lotted. And just another thing for people to sort of take into account is, even if you see something that's advertised, so Scotland Excel, for example, put in place frameworks on behalf of all 32 local authorities. Quite often those are split, and you can just tender for one local authority or a few that you may be in the area of. So even though initially it may look like it's too big for you to, to tender for, I would always recommend that you look at the documentation and actually see what the requirements are before ruling it out.
That's an excellent point, Lynzi. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And Karen, if we can bring you in last but not least.
Yeah, nothing more to add. I think, the point Lynzi's making is, make sure you check the contract or the contract opportunity very carefully to make sure that you don't exclude yourself unnecessarily. So that would be the only thing I would want to add to that.
Great, Karen. Very powerful point. Excellent. Hope that helps the inquirer with that. I think some good information there, some very good hints and tips. Next question, please. I think this may be our last question for anonymous sender. How do you weight your contracts? Is it usually about price over quality? Controversial, and I'm sure you'll get an interesting responses to this one. Again, purely for variety, I'm going to pick randomly. It seemed to point to Derek. That's not really random, is it? Derek, can I bring you in first of all on this one?
Yeah, no problem. Within Fife Council, all contracts frameworks are weighted differently depending on what the nature of the contract is. As a general guide, we use the procurement journey, which has a weighting guide. So it looks at whether things are routine, leverage, or strategic contracts, and then it applies sample weightings to 80-20 in favour of price, 20-80 in favour of quality. It really depends on the contract. We have large-scale construction contracts that can be price-led because the terms and conditions and the specifications are so heavily set. They're very detailed specifications, or they're subject to NEC3 conditions and things like that. So sometimes it could be a complicated contract, but it can be led by price because it's backed up by in-depth specifications. Other times, if it's a service-related contract and the delivery of the service is of paramount importance, regardless of the price, it could be that it's a quality-led weighting. I'm not going to lie and say that price isn't important and that we're still in that cusp of that situation at the moment where if you don't go price-led, you have to provide a reasoning and a bit of a justification. That's the reality of the world we live in at the moment. But I can see changes to that coming, and things such as quality becoming more and more important, especially areas within quality such as sustainability and community benefits. I hope that's answered that question.
Very good, very comprehensive. Thanks, Derek. Lynzi, can I bring yourself in next?
Yeah, very similar to Fife Council, Perth and Kinross. Weightings vary for each individual tender opportunity, and it does depend on the detail of the specification. Do they have a set budget for it? And we would then identify which weightings best suit that individual requirement.
Absolutely, Lynzi, excellent. I'm going to take the liberty of bringing myself in this one before I'll let Karen and Caroline sum up the position on it. But yeah, I have moderately strong views about this. I think that it's important that, and I think it's been said better already by Lynzi and Derek, so I'll add to it, that waiting a contract should depend on what we're buying and depend on the market to some degree. So I think that's absolutely correct. Angus Council, I think it's fair to say, I'm going to be quite candid here, historically has had an odd approach to waiting a contract. I'm glad to see that we've moved the times though. It's not about price over quality in the terms of having a race to the bottom in terms of lowest price. We will always try and write in to our specifications appropriate quality requirements so that what we're buying is obviously at the very least fit for purpose. But wherever we can, if we want to specify additional quality beyond that, we'll include that in the specification. So when it comes to actually evaluating the tenders, well, even if the price weighting is arithmetically higher than quality, we've already built in quality to the spec. However, it also depends very much on the nature of what we're buying. And I think particularly around services, it's very fair to say that sometimes we will actually weight quality over price because it's very hard to specify to the nth degree the requirements around quality, particularly around care contracts. So it depends. And again, without harping back to stuff we've said already too much, if this is something you feel strongly about and a particular supplier wants to make representations to us about how we should weight an upcoming contract opportunity, please get in touch. Please use the market pre-engagement opportunity to influence us. We want to hear from you about this. So that's my thoughts, what they're worth. I'll bring in Caroline and then I'll bring in Karen if that's okay.
Yeah, I completely echo everything that everyone said. The only other thing I would add to that is quality often has more than one criteria attached to it. So we break quality down into sub-criteria. So sometimes while we might have our overall ratio of price versus quality, I know that we've sometimes changed that, still at strategy stage before it's gone out to tender, but when we've broken quality down, we've realised that there are so many aspects in quality that we need to make it meaningful. And areas like Derek touched on sustainability, there's also like fair work first. So it's often once we start to define that sub-criteria and quality that we might kind of clarify what our overall ratio is, just so that it's meaningful and we're satisfied we'll get the best value outcome with that ratio.
Excellent, thanks Caroline. Karen?
Yeah, thank you. And again, echoing what everyone else has said, but I think it really is about ensuring that we're getting the best outcome and the most economically advantageous situation for the council. At the end of the day, it is public monies we're spending, and we need to be sure that we're delivering the desired outcomes both for our services and for our council taxpayers. So really looking at each contract on the basis of what we're seeking it to deliver and ensuring that we get the best outcome that we can.
Excellent, thanks Karen. That's a really good note to finish up on, if I may say, reminding everyone that getting the best outcome that we possibly can for the public buck that we're responsible for is really what we're all doing. So I think that's the last question. So it really just remains for me to thank very much, first of all, the panel. I think the panel, without being modest about it, I think the questions that the answers given are really very high quality. Really appreciate the thought that went into them. And not least to thank those that submitted questions. It's really good to hear your thoughts, really good to have this dialogue, and I hope that we've managed to continue this over time. Thank you very much.